One thing I keep seeing over and over again when I'm doing the research for these videos are countless news stories that are completely blowing out of proportion how well things are going with the economy and with the housing market. And you know, I thought I would just copy their title today, or maybe I decided to change it by now. But originally, the title of this video was supposed to be "Home Buyers Flood the Market as Prices Drop." And that is a direct copycat of the title that was on an article from Newsweek talking about how great things are recovering with the housing market, guys, just because of a couple of little stats, which I want to go over with you guys, that when you dig deeper into these stats that they are celebrating, it's not nearly as great as they're saying it is. So literally, almost every single piece that I see being written about the housing market and the economy today are twisted in a way to make you believe that things are going far better than they actually are, which I think is dangerous because they're giving people a false sense of hope. They're allowing people to be overly optimistic with these things that they're saying that just are not really true, or if there is any truth to it, it's a small little bit of truth. So they say that sales of new single-family homes soared by 8% in December compared to November. So it went up 8% month over month, right? And they also said how it went up 4% year over year, which is actually a pretty decent increase, which I could see that maybe that would be a good thing, right? If the housing market's recovering or whatever, but there's more to it. Because while we did see this uptick in sales with the market in December, simultaneously what we also saw was prices coming down, guys. In fact, the prices of homes sold in December was at its lowest level in 2 years. So literally, people are getting better deals today than they were 2 years ago in the housing market. So once again, I've been telling people to wait this out a little bit and just have some patience, and lo and behold, people who have been waiting are starting to get rewarded as early as right now. Because it's not really a surprise that the home sales have ticked up when the interest rates are lower than they were a year ago. And if people are getting homes at a lower price than they were 2 years ago as well, yeah, no brainer. Jump in and get it if you find the house that you want, you know, and it's a better price and a lower payment than you would have had 2 years ago. That's obvious, you know, who wouldn't go for that? But, you know, even though they try to make things look super rosy, it's still not nearly as rosy as they make it look, because there was 664,000 estimated home sales in the month of December. And a year before that, in December of 2022, was actually 668,000. So there was actually more activity a year ago than there was this previous December, but they're still talking about how great that is. And the funny thing is, this is actually good news, you know, even though it's not the good news that they're trying to make it sound like it is, because what a lot of people want, especially that have a vested interest in real estate in the housing market, is they want home prices to continue going up. But with this current environment that we're in, we're not very likely to see that happen. We're very likely to see home prices remain flat for a while moving forward. And the reason why this is good news for anybody who has been waiting is because if you have a lower payment today than you would have had 2 years ago, number one, you're being rewarded for waiting. Number two, you're seeing a lot more inventory for sale now than there was 2 years ago, so that's helping you out. And on top of that, we're on the cusp of the spring housing market season, which every single year we see a huge uptick in inventory, guys. So this could be the year for a lot of people who have been tired of being sidelined to jump in and get the house they want. You know, you're not going to be saving, you know, leaps and bounds over what you would have been saving 2 years ago, but it is a savings nonetheless. If you can save $300 a month over what you were paying 2 years ago, that's a win in my book. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, you should still wait longer, or you should never buy a house or anything like that. I still think everybody needs to evaluate when the best time to jump into the market for them personally is. But I think 2024 is going to be a much better year than 2022 or 2023 was. But I also think, and that's my opinion, that the best deals are still yet to come. They're not going to be in 2024, guys. It's probably going to be more like 2026, you know, or beyond. Because one thing I've noticed is this downturn in housing is moving quite a bit slower than the last one did. And that's because of all the artificial stimulation coming in from the government and the Fed, and that's keeping things going longer than expected. And I think it's also taken the economy longer than expected to burn through all the extra money that was printed and injected into the economy. And that's been probably the main reason for all the resilience that you hear about, that the labor market has still been going strong and unemployment is still low. But when we look between the cracks, we can see that delinquencies on all forms of debt have been rising steadily over this past year, and that's likely to continue to happen in 2024. The layoffs are starting this year off very strong in 2024. And we're also very likely to see a lot of bankruptcies this year, both personal and corporate, as well as lots of different office buildings going under completely. So there's lots of things ahead of us here in 2024, and we're definitely not out of the woods yet. And it's now to the point where a lot of people are saying, you know what, even if things become a better deal, even if home prices get cheaper, I'm just not interested anymore. In fact, there's been an uptick recently of the amount of renters that are saying they're perfectly content with renting and they prefer it at this point and they want to continue renting. They don't want to become homeowners. There was a study done from NerdWallet recently, and they determined for 2024 that 37% of renters say they plan on renting forever. Guys, that's a lot. That is more than a third of renters that have no plans to become a homeowner. And Americans who are saying this are doing it because it better suits their lifestyle. Some of them have just given up on buying a home because of all of the pitfalls that they've ran into over the past few years, which is also understandable. And here's some of the reasons that these people are saying they're going to continue renting forever. The number one thing is the substantial upfront cost to become a homeowner. Obviously, you're going to have that large down payment, right? Not only do you need that large down payment to buy a home if you want to have any sort of significant equity from the beginning, but mortgage payments on average right now are about 37% higher than rents for apartments, guys. So that is a significant increase. There's no two ways to slice it. In most cases right now, you're going to have to spend significantly more on a monthly basis to become a homeowner and switch over from being a renter. And at a time like now, when inflation has completely squeezed everybody's budget, that's not a very appealing prospect unless you have a lot of disposable income. And they say that even in housing markets where the monthly cost of ownership is right on par with rent, you still have that higher acquisition cost to get into the property initially. You have all the closing costs, you have the higher down payment that costs more than a security deposit, and you have the ongoing maintenance expenses that come with being a homeowner as well that a lot of renters don't want to have. And basically, a lot of these people that thought that maybe they wanted to own a home at some point and are changing their mind are saying, you know what, my heart's not really in it. I kind of like having this extra money left over to invest for my future or use some of it to go on vacation, and I don't have to worry about much being a renter. Just when is my lease up and where's the next place I'm going to live is the only concern you have. And if you don't mind moving, who cares, right? Which kind of leads right into the next point of why these people are continuing to rent. And it's because they don't want to feel tied down owning a home. If you get a new job offer or you want a change of scenery, when you're renting, you can easily just pick up and leave. And that's one of the best things about renting, and it always will be, is the flexibility. 75% of renters say that renting suits their lifestyle better due to this one factor alone. Because of the flexibility, which they like having, they prefer renting. But personally, I think renting is a good way to try and figure out where you want to live, right? Like, it doesn't really make sense to buy a house somewhere if you're not 100% sure that you want to stay in the area for a long time. And when you're on the younger side especially, and you might have new business opportunities, new relationship opportunities that come up in your life, you might want to have that flexibility of moving around. Some people pride themselves on becoming homeowners at a very young age, but also you make sacrifices to make that happen. And it might not always be worth it for everybody. And obviously one of the biggest drawbacks of becoming a homeowner is all the extra work, guys. That's one of the main things that these renters say that they love about renting, is not having to be the handyman around the house and not having to set aside 1 to 4% of the home's value each year in case of home repairs, because that's what it can end up costing. You know, home repairs are not cheap, and if you don't have the budget, guys, people always turn to the home equity loans and the home equity lines of credit that can easily put people upside down in their house and get them into debt that they just simply cannot get out of. That's one of the big mistakes that a lot of homeowners make. In fact, 55% of renters currently say they prefer renting to all the expenses and effort of homeownership. So, you know, that's kind of like back to the freedom thing, the freedom to be able to pick up and move whoever you want, when you want. This is another freedom that you have when you're a renter. And sure, some people might enjoy being a handyman and being the DIYer and doing all the fixer-upper projects around their own home. Some people take pride in that and they enjoy that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also nothing wrong with not wanting to do that stuff at all and spending your free time as you please. But here's probably one of the most interesting reasons that I wasn't expecting to see on this list. And 59% of renters currently believe that buying a house is not a good investment, which is a shock because that's always been considered a good investment. You know, real estate has been considered a good investment since the beginning of time, essentially. And to hear more than half of renters saying that buying a house is not a good investment, let's take a look at the reasons why they might think that. It turns out that the whole pandemic and everything that's happened over the past few years has had a big impact on how people feel about investing in real estate. And a lot of people think that this whole run-up in prices that we've had are unsustainable. They also say that, you know, you can buy a house and fix it up and try to sell it for a profit, but at the end of the day, you are subject to what the market is willing to give you. And that is absolutely true. So it sounds like their biggest concern is they might not be able to get their money back out of the house after making the investment, which I would say is a fair concern, at least right now, with where the housing market is. There's not really much room for things to continue to go much higher, guys. And unless interest rates drop back to the floor, which is very unlikely to happen, you know, to see any further meaningful appreciation from here on out is not looking very likely. And I can understand why people would be very hesitant to buy a house right now. I mean, if I were looking for a place to live right now, especially in an area that has growing inventory on the housing market, I would at least rent for a year and see what happens, because if you live in an area where inventory is continuing to increase month over month or year over year, that is a pretty strong sign you're going to see price declines in the coming future. You know, there's already plenty of metros across the country that are seeing this right now, and waiting a little bit longer will reward you, just like people who've been waiting for the past 2 years and are now getting better deals than people 2 years ago. And kind of the saddest part about this is, you know, how much owning a home has also become like a status symbol in our country, because 34% of renters are embarrassed to admit that they rent instead of own a home. Guys, like, what is embarrassing about saying I work and I pay for a place to live that I can call home? You know, it's embarrassing if you're living on the streets, you know, doing nothing, doing drugs all day. That's an embarrassment to society right there, you know? It's an embarrassment to be living in your parents' basement at 40 years old and not bringing anything to the table and not trying to better your life situation. That's an embarrassment. But to be embarrassed by, you know, paying for your own place to live, whether you rent or own, is a shame, guys. Like, nobody should be embarrassed about that. In fact, when I got my first place to live on my own, even though I was renting, I was psyched, you know? I was super happy to say that, hey, I'm doing this on my own without mom and dad's help. I can pay all my bills. Who cares if you're renting? You know, I have my own place. I don't have to listen to them anymore. That was like the big thing, right? So I don't know how anybody can feel embarrassed about it. Maybe if you're older, you know, if you're in your mid to late 30s and you feel like you see all your friends are becoming homeowners except for you, then that might make people feel like that. But it's still nothing to be embarrassed about. It's just something to strive for, if it's even something you want to begin with. But I would say be cautious, guys, because investors have pulled out of the housing market pretty substantially, and that can be a warning sign that the bottom is about to fall out. It's not a guarantee, but it's a warning sign, because investor purchases of single family homes went down by 29% in 2023. And while a lot of home buyers might say, well, Michael, isn't that a good thing? You know, these institutional buyers were buying everything up, making it impossible for everybody else. Well, yeah, it's a good thing that they've stopped buying, but why have they stopped buying, right? That's what you have to look at. Why did they all of a sudden stop? Well, the answer is simple, guys. It's because there's no more money to be made. You know, becoming a landlord and buying these single family homes is no longer profitable at these prices and rates, which means that we've basically reached the end. They've bid up these homes past the point of affordability for the average person, and even past the point where it makes sense for them as an investment. So in order for it to start making sense for anybody anytime soon, what needs to happen? Prices need to come back down. It's estimated that businesses in general purchased about 570,000 single-family homes in 2023, which is down from the 802,000 they bought in 2022. Realtor.com, according to their data, they're saying that 2023 was the largest annual drop of investor home sales in the last 20 years, guys. Well, what happened 20 years ago was we had the big housing crash and the Great Recession. So if I were somebody in the market who wanted to buy a home this year, I would be very skeptical of why this is happening. And a lot of these investors who did purchase homes, guys, guess what? They purchased these homes with floating rate debt and are now looking at even selling a good chunk of them in order to pay these debts off, because those interest rates that they got when they first bought them a couple years ago have gone up, just like if you had an adjustable rate mortgage. And it's making it so that the investments that they made are no longer as profitable as they once were. And it's anticipated that 2024 is going to be more of the same. You're not going to see investors purchasing all these homes like they were in 2020 and 2021 and 2022. That's probably over. And you can see by looking at this chart how much things have gone down since the first quarter of 2022. Investor purchases are literally falling off a cliff right now. They even say it themselves right here. They see few opportunities to buy large numbers of homes in a market defined by tight inventory, high prices, and slowing rent growth. Well, they have themselves to thank for that partially. So congratulations, you even locked your own self out of the market, investors. So one thing that these big investors are doing instead is they're moving towards acquiring a bunch of new builds. They're trying to buy neighborhoods of entirely newly built homes and turn those into rentals, because, you know, the inventory for single family homes on the resale market is basically dead. And I don't know what you guys think about this, but it's kind of getting to the point where these large institutional investors should no longer be allowed to buy single family homes. And I'm not the kind of person that thinks we should be making all these laws and rules, but I don't see any other way to stop it. And unfortunately, even if there are laws made, because there was a recent bill that was introduced to stop this, and even if it passes, guys, they're gonna find a way to circumvent it, you know? Just like companies will circumvent ways to, you know, be forced to pay people $20 an hour minimum wage, they're just gonna fire a bunch of people. They're gonna give them less hours. So they're gonna find ways to continue buying houses even when they're not supposed to. But to show you that, you know, the party could be over for a lot of these investors right now, because not only there's not a lot of good deals out there for them to pick up, but because of the floating debt rate problem, there is an investment firm called Vinebrook Homes, and they're a real estate investment trust, and they have a lot of properties in the Midwest. And they reported a net loss of $214 million in the first 9 months of 2023. And in November of 2023, the company said that they plan to sell 2,100 homes to help pay down more of its debt load. So you have to wonder how many other institutional investors are in that same boat right now, where their interest rates have doubled, which means that their payments on these properties have likely doubled, along with their property taxes going up, along with their insurance rates going up, making investments that were profitable 3 and 4 years ago actually losing money today. So you have to wonder how many homes out there are like that these investors bought that are no longer going to be profitable, and they're going to have to sell, guys. Well, that's just one company saying there's 2,100, but there are a ton of these big investment firms that own a bunch of real estate. So we will find out as the year goes on and as interest rates remain higher for longer, just how many of these homes need to be sold to recover these losses. And once again, that's just more good news for you, the home buyer, who has been waiting things out for the past couple of years. People are already getting better deals today than they were 2 years ago, and that trend is likely to continue into the future. Don't rush into it, guys. You can still look, if you find a great deal, jump on it, but don't feel pressured into buying something right now because you feel like you're never going to be able to, because we are seeing time and time again that FOMO mentality just never holds up in the long run. Congratulations to everybody who's getting a better deal today and saving that few $100s a month becoming a homeowner. I'm proud of you and looking forward to hearing more of your success stories to come on that. Oh, and by the way, anybody who needs a real estate agent, whether you're looking to buy or sell throughout the entire country, make sure to use my link down in the description below. I'll get you set up with a real estate agent completely for free, and it helps you and it helps the channel. I appreciate you using it. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.